DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you're expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there to go and make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. And we put all this together in one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one show, one book. Yeah, I got a book on it. I'll tell you about that in a minute. This daily masterclass right here that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, your host today and every single day for the foreseeable future. And if you don't have a copy of my hardcover book that is called Work on Your Game, but you're listening to a show called Work on Your Game, that's backwards. And I don't blame you for it. I fault myself for, on the heels of what we talked about yesterday, I didn't sell this book to you yet. So let me tell you right now to go to workonyourgamebook.com. Not only am I going to give you a copy of the hardcover book that you're going to receive in the mail, of course, and we ship worldwide. We have airplanes nowadays. We will also give you right now on the spot today over $1,300 in immediate digital bonuses that you access right now on the spot when you go to workonyourgamebook.com and order your copy of my hardcover book called Work on Your Game. Now, anyway, today's topic is not about that book, Work on Your Game, but actually that's the topic every day. But today's topic is maintaining listeners for your podcast, believe it or not. So the reason why this is the topic, I must credit trusty Quora.com, the Quora website. If you don't know what Quora is, it is spelled Quora, Quora, and that is a website where anyone can post a question and crowdsource the answers. So in other words, all you do is go in there and say something like, as this person did, they said, how do I maintain listeners for a podcast? They posted that question. I don't know who this person was, but because I had signed up and I said I can answer questions on certain topics. They basically ask you to building your profile on Quora, what type of questions do you want to answer questions about, or what type of topics do you want to answer questions about? So I chose things such as basketball, professional basketball, personal branding, mindset, confidence, podcasting. I said any questions that are on those topics, let me know, Quora, and I'll post answers to any questions that I think I can answer. So being that mutually beneficial situation is set up, now you might wonder, you could maybe understand why somebody would want to get a whole bunch of answers from a whole bunch of different qualified people whenever they post a question. So any of you who has a question about life and you want to get an answer, maybe you post it on Quora and you can get a good answer from somebody. But why would somebody want to answer questions? Why would somebody like me, what do I get from answering questions like that? Well, number one, people who think they know things, they like to tell people about them. So that's one reason. That's one benefit that I get, is it benefits my ego. But that's not the main reason that I do it. We also you get recognized on Quora for being a person who's answering questions. That's a little bit of it. I don't really give a damn about recognition on Quora. I never heard about anybody saying, hey, I got this many followers on Quora, give me a brand deal. That's not the real reason I do it. One reason that I do it is because when I answer questions on Quora, I read my answers and I say, you know what? I should probably talk about this on the Work on Your Game masterclass, because there are people listening to my show who will probably want to know these things. That's the main benefit for me. I use Quora as a source for content ideas. Now, when people ask me, Dre, how do you get ideas for content? How do you put out 1,600 episodes with a new episode? How do you put out a new episode of a show every single day for 1,600 days in a row without repeating the same content like every other podcast does, and shows that only come out once a week? They can't even come out with new material. How do you do it 1,600 days in a row without repeating anything? Well, one reason is that I'm not an evil genius. At least I wish I was, but I'm not. So I don't just sit in an empty room and just come up with all these ideas every single day. I get content ideas from listening to other people, looking at things that happen, from the questions that you all ask me, from DMs and snaps and emails that I get from people, and from going on sites like Quora, where people who I have never met and probably never will meet post random questions, not directly expecting an answer from Dre Baldwin, but Dre Baldwin sees it and says, you know what, I could use that question as a content topic on my own show, and then I go use it for my own purposes. So I basically repurpose a person's question and use it for this show. So any of you who thought I was an evil genius, I'm sad to disappoint you that I'm not, but I'm genius enough to know when I see an opportunity and utilize it. So Quora, thank you for offering this question, which is maintaining listeners for your podcast. So assuming that this person was talking about an audio show or a video show, I think they might have used the word maintaining viewers for their podcast. I think that's what they said, viewers for my podcast, because a lot of people these days, instead of actually setting up a podcast, a quote unquote proper podcast, such as having an audio host and then setting up the RSS feed through Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all those feeds, which can seem like it's very technical, but it's really not. Once I really looked into it, I realized, oh, this is actually pretty fucking simple. But actually, I didn't start my podcast maybe for about a month or two before I actually did in the spring of 2016, because I thought it might be too technical for me to figure out. But once I actually looked at it, I said, oh, this is so simple. But I was not doing it simply because I thought it was very technical. But there are people out there who still think that way. And what they do is, instead of doing all that setup, they actually post videos on YouTube, and then they just give it a sequence and put it in a playlist, and they call it a podcast. So there are many podcasts that only publish videos on YouTube. They're not even on an RSS feed, and you can just watch them on YouTube. So people call their YouTube channels podcasts. So this person, I mean, I do a lot of explaining for those of y'all who don't know. They asked this question by saying viewers, when I think they were simply referring to views on YouTube videos, but they were saying they use the word podcast. So all of that being said, if I haven't explained that clearly enough, you should just rewind it, as I think I did. Point number one, today's topic once again is maintaining listeners for your podcast. Number one thing you need is quality content. This is never going to change. It never has changed. It is not changing today, and it will not change tomorrow. You must have quality content if you want people to listen to your shit. If you want people to listen to your shit, watch your shit, read your shit, download your shit, buy your shit, attend your shit, buy tickets to your shit, download your free shit, it must be quality shit. All right? Quality content is king. Content is king. It will always be king. No amount of marketing or gimmicks can change the fact that your content is garbage if it's garbage. If your shit is trash, it will be trash. You could be the best marketer in the world. All right, trashy shit was only going to get marketed for so long to so many people before you can't fool them anymore, and you're going to have to move on to something else. All right, you can have a trashy product and be the best salesman in the world. You will sell a lot of that trashy product, but as word spreads that your product is trash, eventually you won't have anybody to sell to anymore. Then you're going to have to go come up with another product, and hopefully that one's actually good. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what is the promise that you're making to your audience? In other words, what is the expectation that you are setting in the mind of your audience for your show? And then are you delivering on that expectation? What is your audience expecting of you, and do you deliver on it? This is the question that you should be asking yourself when you put your show out. When you first come out, maybe you don't know exactly what your show is going to be about. Maybe you just decided, I want to jump into this podcasting thing. I don't really know what my show is going to be about, but I'm going to just get into it, and we just going to talk about things and just see how it goes. When I first started working on your game, I didn't have the 4-part framework that I lay out of discipline, confidence, mental self, personal, and this. So I wasn't saying that when the show first came out. I was talking about getting yourself seen, heard, and known in the world, whether that be through business, through sports, and things like that, then eventually morphed into what it is now. So don't think that just because you set a certain expectation when your show begins that it has to stay that way. You can change it to something else. If you decide that there's a better approach or a better angle to come from when it comes to your show. But whatever the expectation is, if you say, hey, this is a show that's about baseball, then talk about baseball. If you say the show is about conflict in rap music, then talk about conflict in rap music. Whatever your show is about, make sure you are delivering on that topic. In each episode, if you say, all right, in this episode, we're going to discuss Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, then talk about that. All right, don't say that it's about this and then talk about something else. Whatever you say you're going to give your audience, just give it to them. They can't be mad at you if you give them what you said you were going to give to them. Now, if they're not interested in that topic, then you are giving the audience, you're giving your listeners the choice of whether or not to listen to that episode. Every episode of this show, I tell you exactly what the show is about. It's right there in the title, so you can choose. Some of you may listen to the show by picking and choosing. You might look at one of the topics and say, all right, Dre's topic today is number 1569, systems and processes, why they work and why people are not using them. You might say, well, I don't care about systems and processes. I mess with Dre, but I don't care about that topic. So you know what, I'm gonna move on and I'm gonna listen to instead episode number 1541, which is how to score more. Or I'm gonna listen to episode number 1436, which is how to keep the power in your own hands. Or you know what, I'm gonna go down and listen to episode number 1178, first who, then what. But I'm not gonna listen to episode 1179, how to play life on offenses. I don't care about that. And I'm not going to listen to episode number 1181, what if my price is too high, because I don't care about that. And I don't care about episode number 1035, your self-scouting report, but I will listen to episode number 950, which is, check this out, what makes for a quality podcast. If you haven't listened to that one, listen to that one too, because I've talked about this a few times here. So content, now bet I don't remember what I said in episode 950, but I bet one of the things I said is you better have some quality content. So this is going to be the first answer usually for anything that people are asking about how to have a podcast or a show or a YouTube channel or a book or whatever. You got to have some quality. You got to have something to say of substance that is useful for an audience of people. All right, that is the most important thing that you will always need. I told you in masterclass number 1286 how to be a person of substance. If you're not a person of substance, it might be a little bit difficult for you to create a podcast of substance. All right, a person of no substance can't create a podcast of substance. Like an apple tree can't produce oranges. Okay, so make sure you are a person of substance if you want to put out something of substance. All right, you can't not have it and then try to create it. All right, makes no sense. Again, that's masterclass number 1286, being a person of substance. And then on this same point of quality content, is your show consistently giving quality content, or are you only giving quality content every now and then? If your show's coming out 3 times a week, are you putting out 3 quality episodes a week, or is only one of them a week actually any good? Because if that's the case, then maybe you may consider going to putting out your show once a week. Since you are capable of putting out 1 good show a week, why don't you just put out 1 show a week, period, so that you're not batting 33%. Instead, you're batting 1,000, if you understand what I'm saying. Is every episode of your show actually worth it, or only some of them are worth it? These are questions that you need to ask yourself about your show and your self-evaluation. Then you need to ask someone who is close to you, who actually knows you, who can tell you to your face if your shit is trash. And if it's trash, they'll tell you. And not one of your friends who's just gonna tell you it's all right when it's garbage. All right, I know you got a lot of friends who'll do that. I got a lot of friends who tell me something's all right when it's garbage. I need friends who will tell me it's shit when it's shit. You understand? And you might not have too many of those, but I'm gonna tell you in masterclass number 1031, masterclass number 1031, the value of not friends in your life. You know what a not friend is a person who does not need to be your friend, but they're cool with you because they'll tell you some shit that you need to hear even when you don't really want to hear it. You need those people around you, and many of us unfortunately push people like that away because we don't want to hear things that we don't want to hear. But there is value in having those people around, which is why I spent 30 minutes in masterclass number 1031 telling you the value of those individuals. I also told you the day before that, masterclass number 1030, why you need to be challenged, questioned, and pushed in life. Those are the people who will tell you without you even asking them. Hey, these are people who tell you your podcast is garbage, even if you didn't ask them if the podcast was garbage. You didn't ask them nothing about your podcast. They just say, yo, I just wanted to call you to let you know your podcast is garbage and you need to step your game up. And this is your friend. All right, you need people around you in life who will do this for you. If you don't have them around you, then go get some. So that's the second level. First level is you looking at your own stuff and saying, is this trash or is it not? Second level is people close to you who will tell you it is trash. And the third level is you actually asking your audience. You might not even know them personally, but they have a connection to you and a relationship with you because they listen to your shit every day, and ask them, tell me your honest feedback about the show. And in order to get people's honest feedback, it's much preferable that you ask some specific open-ended questions rather than just saying, tell me what you think. Because if you look somebody in their face and ask them to tell you what they think, they're usually, because for the most part, people are mostly good and mostly friendly and mostly want to maintain positive relationships. They're not going to tell you that most people are not going to look you in your face and tell you that something's garbage, even if that's what they actually think. They will tell you a softened version of it that does not get the point across, or they won't tell you anything at all, or they'll just answer whatever question you ask. Like if you say, hey, is my show good? They'll say, yeah, it's good. If you say, what do you think of my show? They'll say, yeah, it's pretty good. I mess with it. I listened to a couple episodes. There is a very small percentage of people who look you in your face and say, yo, your show is trash because, and then actually tell you why it's trash, and then actually tell you how to fix it. Actually, if you find a person like that, listen, handcuff yourself to them because you will probably not find another one for as long as you live. And also, you can set yourself up though, since you probably won't find that person randomly, you can set yourself up to get better feedback from your audience by asking specific questions, such as, what is it that drew you to the show? Or what are some things about the show that you feel like could be improved? What parts of the show do you feel we could eliminate and you wouldn't miss them? These are the kind of questions that you need to start asking your audience so that you can get some real feedback. And the quality of your feedback is based on the quality of your questions. Point number 2, I'll probably do a whole, not even a masterclass on that, but inside of the game group membership, when we get our live calls going, which may be going by the time you hear this, but if they're not, they're coming very soon. I'll probably do a whole session just on that, asking the right type of questions to get the kind of information that you actually need, not just the information that you want. Point number 2, today's topic once again is maintaining listeners for your audio show or podcast. Number 2, consistency. Human beings are creatures of habit. We are drawn to what we can predict and what we can depend on. Although your topics or guests, since most podcasts that I know of, they usually have a guest every episode, Your topics will, of course, change from episode to episode. Your format and style should be consistent because that will draw an audience and it will keep an audience. I mean, listen to this show right here. Every day is a different topic. I've given you the 1,600 and another 1,000 more to go. Probably more than 1,000, hopefully, knock on wood. I give you different topics every single day that we do this show. And I usually don't have guests, but if I do, the guests can change. And the conversation, even if I have the same guests on the show, we're not gonna talk about the same thing every time they come on the show. Those change, but the format is always the same. You know what you're listening to when you get into that intro. You know that after the intro, I'm going to tell you, hey, this is what the topic is. This is why the topic is the topic. And then I'm going to get into my points. It's usually 3 points. Sometimes there are 4, 5, or 6 points. Then I'm going to recap the points. And in between doing all that, I'm going to refer you to some other episodes of the show that you either don't know about or forgot about, or maybe you do know about. And when I remind you, you go listen to them again. And then the show is going to be over. You know the format. The format does not change, even though the content within the format may change. That is the consistency that leads you to like the show unconsciously, if not consciously. Also, how often you're publishing your show. You say the show is every day, it comes out every day. You say it's once a week. People are all right with that as long as it's actually coming out once a week. Whatever your schedule is going to be, whatever your format is going to be, stick to it so people can come to expect it. And when people come to expect something and they come to depend on it, they will pay for it. They will buy into it. They will stay with it. They will tell other people about it. They will come to want it in their lives, again, unconsciously and not consciously. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to maintain listeners for your show. Number 3 thing, you must be interesting. Yes, be interesting. Now, I know some of you have heard the saying that in order to be interesting, you have to be interested, right? You have to, if you want other people to be interested in you, then you should actually ask them questions and let them do most of the talking. And that gets them to like you because they finally get to talk about their favorite subject themselves. Now here, I'm not talking about it in that direction. What I'm talking about here, I'm talking about you actually being a person that other people want to listen to talk. Now that's what I mean here. Because on a podcast, you can't really listen to other people talk unless you're doing it like a live, call-in radio type show where you let people call and you just let them talk. But I think the very purpose of someone listening to a podcast is we want to hear the host. We want to hear the host. Even if the host is just interviewing people, we want to hear them do the interviewing. That's the reason why we listen to the show. If I listen to the Joe Rogan show, is because I like the kind of conversation that Joe Rogan sparks with whoever he has as guests. Even though the guest may be doing the majority of the talking, I like to hear Joe Rogan having that person talk. Not just any random person talking to them, but Joe Rogan talking to that individual. So that's why I tune into the show. So being interesting does not necessarily mean that you do all the talking and just be a talking head or a mouthpiece like I am on this show. You could be, in the Joe Rogan sense, not even talk that much, but because you're the vessel through which the conversation is happening, that can draw people in as well. So there are different ways of doing it. Podcast listeners, ladies and gentlemen, are a wrapped audience. What that means is you have the majority of their attention while they're listening to you. Either if they're doing other things, podcast listeners either have their headphones in or they're listening to you in somewhere like in the car, maybe they're listening in the car where the sound is basically taking up all the space inside of the vehicle, or they have you pumped into their earphones for the most part. For most of the time, I don't hear people listen to podcasts out loud on their speaker. If I hear people listen to music out loud on the speaker, usually it's music, not a podcast. So when you are doing your show, understand that everything that you're saying, that speech is being pumped directly into the ears of your audience for the duration of that episode or that conversation, which means you have a majority of their attention because they are driving or jogging or washing dishes or doing something where their hands are occupied. And if the show is interesting, whatever it is, whatever you're talking about is interesting enough, they will keep listening and they will, again, you're pumping it straight into their ears. And this is scientifically proven, the way that people take in information, wherever someone receives sensory information, the 5 senses: hear, smelling, seeing, touching, and tasting. The closer it is to the human brain, the quicker the message gets there. In other words, if you burned your toe, right? Let's say you stepped on something, you stepped on a nail and it created a pain in your foot. It would take a moment for the pain signal to travel from your foot up to your brain for you to realize, ouch, that hurt. Or damn, I stepped on something, it's burning. Or I stepped on a nail and there's something happening at the very bottom of your body, the furthest possible point from your brain. But when something comes into your ear, All right, that's right next to your brain. So you're getting that message damn near instantaneously, and it's going straight into the brain. So when someone's listening to your show, understand that you are occupying some very valuable real estate in their person. So respect that and actually have some valuable information to give them, because if you don't, they will let you know by stopping or discontinuing their listening of your show. And they will do it very quickly because they have plenty of options. Point number 4. Today's topic is how to maintain listeners for your show. Know your audience. Who are you talking to? Speak to your audience's needs, concerns, and desires. Now, how do you know what your audience's needs, concerns, and desires are if you don't know who they are? All your audience is to many podcasters or YouTubers or broadcasters of anything is just a whole bunch of numbers, right? 100 listeners, 3,000 views, 1 million downloads, but you have no idea who any of those people is. If you want to know the needs, concerns, and desires of your audience, here's what you must do. You must engage with your audience. How do you engage with your audience? Read the comments, read the feedback, listen to the feedback, invite people to send you direct messages, emails, snaps, private messages, whatever it is, whatever you can do on any of these platforms, all those things. You must have an open door policy when it comes to your audience for any type of material you're putting out there into the world. Open door policy meaning there should be a way for people to share their opinion with you. Now, it doesn't mean you have to respond to everybody. Does not mean you have to have a back and forth with everybody, but it should mean there's a way that everyone knows that they can easily share with you what they think. On something like Apple Podcasts, for example, you can ask people, hey, leave a review of the show. If you're listening to this show right now, you have not left a review of the Work on Your Game show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts of the Work on Your Game show. I'm asking you right now. Ask people to leave a review. Ask people, if you're listening to this in the exclusive Game Group membership app, like the show, like an episode if you liked it, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about it or how you're going to apply it. These are things that you may have to ask for. People are not automatically doing them. And most of the time, people will not automatically do stuff if they don't need to do it in order to get the material that they wanted. So you have to ask for this. And then you get the conversation started, and then it becomes more of a normal thing. Speak to people's needs, concerns, and desires. You can only do that by knowing what they are. You only know that by letting them talk to you and letting them know that they have an open forum to do so. These are the ways that you can keep your audience paying attention to what you are doing. Let's recap today's class, which is maintaining listeners for your podcast. Thank you to Cora for providing this question. Number 1, quality content. Content is and will always be king. No amount of marketing or gimmicks can undo trashy content. What is your promise to your audience, and are you delivering on that promise? You must ask and answer that question. Number 2, consistency. Human beings are creatures of habit. We are drawn to what we can predict and depend on. Though your topics and guests will always change, your format should not. Point number 3, be interesting. Listeners are a rapt audience. You are pumping your speech directly into their ears for the duration of your show. You often have their full attention. And if it's interesting, they will keep listening. Point number 4, know your audience. Speak to their needs, concerns, and desires, which may change and morph over time. From 2016 to 2020, things have changed. With me, things have changed with my audience. Things have changed in the world. I need to be open to listening to what is going on and knowing what's going on with my audience so I can adjust as necessary while still staying true to the main principles of what the show is about. I think I've done pretty well on that, but if I haven't, you gotta leave me feedback and let me know. Email me, dre@dreallday.com. You will know what people's needs, concerns, and desires are by engaging with your audience and having an open door policy when it comes to the way your listeners can reach you. If they don't know how to reach you or don't know if they can reach you, then they won't do it. And if you're not doing a good enough job with the message, they will just disappear and you won't even know what the hell just happened. Don't let that happen to you. Work on your game. Dre all day.